In this video, we're going to cover the skill of interpreting remainders. Remainders are what is left over in a division problem. So, for example, if we're doing 17 divided by 3, 3 can fit into 17 5 whole times without going over, but it's going to leave 2 left over. So our answer would be 5 remainder 2. Let's take this problem. How many times can 4 fit into 21 without going over? That's really what we're asking when we're doing 21 divided by 4. How many times can 4 fit into 21 without going over? I'm going to skip count. 4, that's once. 8, that's twice. 12, that's 3 times. 16, 4 times. 20, that's 5 times. 24. I can't count that because now 4 is going over 21. So 4 can fit into 21 5 whole times, and that got me to 20. So what's the difference between 20 and 21? My dividend here, 1. So I'm going to have a remainder of 1. Let's do this next one. How many times can 5 fit into 32 without going over? How many whole times can we skip count by 5s before we get over 32? So again, I'm going to skip count. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Can't count that one because it went over 32. So 5 can fit into 32 6 whole times. That got me to 30. What's the difference between 30 and 32? Our dividend, 2. So remainder 2. Now, those were all math answers when we got a whole number with a remainder, but remainders in the real world are a little bit different. There's actually different ways to interpret and deal with remainders when we're talking about word problems and story problems in the real world. We're going to focus on 3 of those different ways. The 4th way talks about decimals and fractions, and we're just not there yet. So we're going to focus on 3 different ways to deal with a remainder. The first way is to completely drop the remainder. So when we get an answer, we're actually going to completely ignore that remainder part of our answer. So here's an example of using that way. Jeffrey made 10 bracelets. He wants to fill gift boxes with 3 bracelets in each box to pass out on Valentine's Day. How many full treat boxes will he be able to pass out? So in this problem, I'm doing 10 divided into groups of 3. So I'm asking myself, how many times can 3 fit into 10 without going over? So I'm going to skip count. 3, 6, 9, 12. That goes over. So really, 3 can fit into 10 3 whole times. Now that got me to 9 with a remainder of 1. Now, again, this is our math answer. These numbers now mean real things. So this 3 represents, I'm going to go back to my question, how many full treat boxes? Well, here's my whole answer here. 3 full treat boxes. This remainder actually means something completely different. This remainder is representing the bracelets that are left over. They won't fit into a full box. So in this case, my only question was how many full treat boxes will he be able to pass out? Nothing to do with any leftover bracelets. So I'm going to drop the remainder, ignore it completely, and answer the question to the fullest. 3 full treat boxes. Let's look at another way that we could deal with a remainder. Another way to deal with a remainder is to find only the remainder. So this would be the case of the question is asking you for what is left over. Rachel baked 20 chocolate chip cookies. She divided them evenly to gift them to her 6 best friends. Her mom made her give the extras to her younger brother. How many cookies will Rachel's brother get? So in this case, we need to figure out how many cookies are going to be left over after she gives them out to her 6 best friends. So we're going to do 20 divided by 6, 20 cookies divided into 6 groups. And we're going to ask ourselves, how many times can 6 fit into 20 without going over? So skip counting, 6, 12, 18, 24 would go over, so 6 can fit into 23 whole times. That would get us to 18. The difference between 18 and 20 is 2, so our remainder in this case is 2. Now again, these numbers represent different things. This 3 in this case represents how many cookies each of her best friends get. They all get 3 cookies each. This remainder 2 represents something different. That's how many cookies would be left over after giving them out to her friends. The question, I always have to go back and check my question, is asking how many cookies will Rachel's brother get? And in our story problem, it tells us that her brother's going to get any of the extra cookies. So whatever's left over is all we care about here. We actually don't care how many cookies each friend gets. The question is just wanting to know how many extras. So her brother's going to get 2 cookies, those 2 leftover cookies. There's one last way that we can interpret a remainder. Let's get to it. The last way to interpret and understand a remainder in a division problem is to actually round up the quotient. The answer to the division problem gets rounded up. 16 students are planning to go on the class field trip to the zoo. If the school has to rent vans that hold 6 students each to transport them to the zoo, how many vans must they rent? So I'm going to do 16 students divided into 6 groups of 6 for the vans. Asking myself, how many times can 6 fit into 16 without going over? 6, 12, 18 would go over. So 6 can fit into 16 2 whole times. That would have gotten me to 12. The difference between 12 and 16 is 4, so my remainder this time is 4. Looking at this math answer, looking at my quotient, 2 would mean 2 full vans, because that's my whole number answer. And then the remainder 4 represents remaining 4 students left over. Thinking about this word problem, would it be fair for only 12 students to go because they filled up 2 whole vans and 4 students to just not go? No, that wouldn't make sense in this situation. So they must rent an extra van to fill with 4 of those leftover students. So instead of the answer being 2, we're going to round it up and get an extra van. So the final answer is actually going to be 3 vans. Because if we only put 2, 4 kids would not go. These are the ways to interpret a remainder in those story problems. Drop the remainder, focus on the remainder as the actual answer, or round up the quotient.